Good evening and welcome in to Buzz TV, where, as we always say, this is where the hive comes alive. Whether you're a new beekeeper or one of those grizzled veterans that has honey just oozing through your veins, we think we've got a great show for you tonight. Ray Civitts is going to be on the hot seat tonight with a special Q&A edition of our show. Nikki's going to be popping in at some point with another empowering edition of Women in Beekeeping. And we're going to give you the scoop on our National Beekeepers Boot Camp. It is back. All the details, registration information, why it might be valuable, how you can save some money, bringing some friends and family to the event. And that's going to be a lot of fun, not to mention the fact that we're giving away free bees tonight.
Free bees, Brian.
We love giving away free bees, and all you got to do is ask a qualifying beekeeping question, which means no nonsense. All questions accepted, but we're looking for your beekeeping questions tonight.
An honest question.
An honest question. So ask your honest questions, get qualified for that 3-pound package of bees that will be sent out in the spring, obviously. If we're not sending bees out in the fall, but we will do that. My name is Brian Race. I'm your co-host. Ray Civitts, the owner of Mountain Sweet Honey. Mountain Sweet Honey is the sponsor of Buzz TV. You can find out all about them at mountainsweethoney.com. And thank you, Ray, and to you in the business for sponsoring Buzz TV.
It is a privilege, Brian. Brian, when did we ever see cool temperatures here in the South in August?
I'm thinking 1867.
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I mean,
it's not a trivia question.
In my 62 years here in the South, I don't recall.
It is a little rare. I can think back to some early Septembers where it was still hitting triple digits and summer was in full swing, and we're starting to see those temps. I think it was 55 the other 50s. Night. I'm sleeping with the windows open, as are many enjoying the cool weather.
Well, that's posed a real challenge for us as beekeepers of how do we play this year? We came off from the hurricane last September, Hurricane Helene coming through, and a little later in September. And then we had the snowfall in Florida. It was snowing in Florida in January. And so those combinations have put us not in a La Nina or a El Nino season, but a neutral. And I can't remember when we've had a neutral summer.
Okay.
It's either been La Nina or El Nino. But
not this year. This year it just can't make up its mind, and it's stuck in neutral.
And I don't recall any forecasts either that was a neutral.
Any idea what that's going to portend?
Well, I think with us seeing, first of all, May, we were shipping bees with sweatshirts on right through the middle of May. And then it finally started to warm up the latter end of May. And now we're in August, which we're still supposed to be seeing 90 to 95 degree weather for the next 30 days. And we're 2 weeks in of cool temperatures in the 50s and lower 60s at night and upper 80s here and there. But I think this cool streak is going to continue here in the Southeast, and that we're going to see cooler weather going into the winter months.
Which might mean some adjustments needing to be made with the apiary. So if you have questions about handling that tonight, we hope you'll ask.
Even the foliage is either plus 3 weeks or minus 3 weeks on the seasonality of the leaves changing. So we're seeing some really abnormalities that have never been seen, at least in my lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
Now, did you say how to register for the questions?
Yeah, well, all you need to do is there on Facebook or on YouTube, go into the comments, the chat section, just type out your question. We'll get it over to Ray as soon as possible. And then towards the end of our hour together, we'll do a drawing to see who wins that free package of bees. Mm-hmm. So I hope that you will do that. And I had mentioned a little bit earlier, and let me see if I can pull this up real quick, that we have a beekeepers boot camp that is coming up soon, and you'll see now on your screen there's a QR code, and you can scan that with your phone anytime to get to details. We'll explore that in more detail coming up shortly, but I wanted you to know you can go ahead and do that quick QR code.
You know, Brian, this is no small feat that we do this twice a year. And Stacy and crew were working on it as of yesterday, just trying to get the staging in place. So folks, if you're interested in expanding your knowledge, come join us for a day of learning. And that's what we call the National Beekeepers Boot Camp. And it's a fun time. I mean, I've heard from almost every student every year, and some years we've had 300-400 that have come out to our boot camp. And I think this year it's going to be a little bit more intimate, Brian, on that side. So the student to teacher ratio is going to be a little bit more smaller. That means more questions can be asked, and from those that are there.
And Ray, of course, will be
Yes.
the head beekeeper. He'll be the one leading the majority of the instruction. And I assume since we were talking about weather permitting, we'll be outside at some point actually inspecting the hives, and you walking us through much of the teaching that you gave in the more classroom setting.
Yes. And it's a fun time. I mean, you get to ask questions, you get to hear other beekeepers' struggles and learn through those question and answer times. And then I'm kind of the guiding force that keeps us on track through a full day of learning. And at the same time, we have Chick-fil-A that comes in and feeds us at the midpoint. Everybody likes that Chick-fil-A, Brian. And then we round it on out at the end of the day with a hive inspection and going through all the details that I've went through the whole training program. We have it is just rewarding for me, folks, to hear your feedback at the end of the class. A lot of times we hear, hey, this is the best class that I've ever taken, and this is my third or fourth one, and this was spot on for me. So we hope that's the case this coming October the 11th from 9 to 4 here in Toccoa, Georgia. A lot of people are driving in. There is some hotel availability. If you have a problem on finding a place to stay, call Nikki at our office, and she'll help you find some rooms available there.
Cool.
All right.
Our first questions are rolling in. Are you ready to get started?
What else did we have, Brian, on our...
you mentioned something to me that you were looking at some analytics on Facebook, and you saw that just some things were exploding there on our Facebook page.
I want to give a shout out to everybody. I get a Google report, analytics report on a monthly basis, Brian. And I looked at it, and I was doing some other paperwork while I was reading an email, waiting for a phone call, and filling out some forms. And it said, "Congratulations, Ray, your numbers are up." Folks, we had over 450,000 people come in on our social media pages this past 30 days.
Thank you.
And I mean, man, I couldn't even dream that big 14 years ago when we got this thing started. And, you know, we were lucky, Brian, if we had 1,000 followers, and now we have over 100,000 followers and likes on our Facebook page alone. So I just want to say thank you to everybody. It's a big achievement for us, and we couldn't do it without you. And thank you.
Cool. Well, if you're ready, we're going to switch you over, get you here on the hot seat, and fire away with our very first question, which comes from Tony. He's new to beekeeping, and he wants to know the differences between the Italian and the Russian, and he lives there in middle to northern Tennessee. What do you think?
Well, first of all, Tony, welcome to the wonderful world of beekeeping. It's a great hobby. You'll enjoy it. You'll love the peacefulness that comes with being a beekeeper. All right, so what is the difference between Italians and Russians? First of all, I say this very gently, but also very loudly, is always start your beekeeping experience with Italian bees. They are the most mild-mannered bees that you'll be able to deal with out of all the different bees that are available. The Russians, they are very temperamental. If you make a mistake like dropping a frame of bees, they're going to be all up in your face. So I would highly recommend going with Italian bees. And being in Tennessee, they would be the perfect bee for you there. Russians are more for the Northeast and upper Midwest, as they're a lot more hardier of the queens laying later into the early fall season. So they go in with a bigger cluster of bees going into the winter months. And so that's why we did carry Russians up until this year, and there just was not enough demand for the Russians for us to continue to carry those. So we have the Italian bees, the Carniolan, and the Caucasian bees. So those three packages are what we are carrying for this season. Now, I will tell you that we are close to the 2027 season of bringing in Buckfast. So stay tuned on that. We'll have more details in about another 6 to 8 months on the Buckfast bees.
All right, Tony, thank you for the question. You're now entered into the contest for the opportunity to pick up a package of bees. We appreciate that. And Ray, we've got another question here. This one from Tina, and she is wondering, should she switch from feeding sugar syrup to candy boards at some point here in the near future? What are your thoughts?
Okay, Tina, what I would suggest is right now is a perfect time, almost nationwide. I don't know where you're located at, but feeding sugar syrup is a must do, and it should be 1-to-1 this time of the year up until the first frost. And at the first frost, that's when you want to cut back to a 1.5-to-1 or a 1-to-2 ratio. And that would be 1 water to 2 pounds of sugar, or 1 gallon of water to 2 gallons of sugar. So it just needs to be 1-to-2 at the max. Anything more, like a 1-to-3, will really set your bees back. And a 1-to-1 during the cold months, you're going to have your queen overlaying, and you're going to lose a lot of brood due to freeze outs. So very, very important to keep the sugar water going on your bees from this time all the way through the early spring months. Brian, can you go back? All right. Okay. So yes, candy boards, you can do. I like to see those, especially pollen patties, given, because pollen does a lot of good things for our bees during the winter months. So a pollen patty is a lot more encourageable that I would use instead of a straight up sugar brick.
Cool. Thank you, Tina. It's always helpful to us if you tell us where it is that you live, where you're watching from. So feel free to add that information when you're doing your question. Now, I recognize Gary as one of our longtime viewers. Hey, Gary, thanks for being with us on Buzz TV tonight. And he wants to know about moisture boards and whether or not they're good for winter use.
Okay, Gary, that's a good question. If you're up in the Northeast or in the upper Midwest, I would encourage watching moisture levels within the hive. Moisture boards can be very, very good for a hive, but you got to still have some ventilation at given warmer spurts of the calendar to be able to drive that moisture out of the hive. Moisture boards will help, but it won't do the whole trick on that there. So again, is try it and just see how you do with it. If you have a lot of moisture, and what normally happens is the hive is leaking in water at various times, and it begins to pool on the bottom board of the hive. And when that happens, now you have humidity that is within the hive itself. So that can be detrimental, and a moisture board can also help, especially if you have drifts that are going over the hive on that. So
if somebody is not familiar with a moisture board, can you sort of describe or pull out the telestrator or whatever you need to do to help us understand that?
Okay, so we have the hive here, and boy, is this going to be crude tonight. All right, so we have the deep and we have a couple of mediums here. And then, oh, hold on here.
You must be in ghost mode or
Okay,
something.
yeah. All right, so here's your hive. You got two mediums and you have a deep here. On the top of this, you're going to have, instead of an inner cover, you're going to have your moisture board. And that goes there, and then your outer cover goes over that. So that moisture board is there, and it's to get, as the humidity rises from the heat of the bees, it gets into that moisture board, Brian.
Thank you. That is helpful.
What's happening on that.
No, that is good to know. Thank you very much for doing that. Gary, thank you for the question. Anne has our next question. She recently installed a package here at the start of the summer, and she has medium honey supers, and they're about 60% filled. Should she remove them for the winter or leave them on? And she did tell us where she's from, there in Central Florida.
Okay, and what I'm seeing is that you have, instead of a deep, you have medium supers, and that's all good and well. And let's see here, there's 60. Okay, so I don't know what the science is behind this, but we used to do medium hives for our customers. And it is extremely hard. For some reason, the DNA of bees, they don't want to have the mediums as their brood box. And that was always a very tough thing for us to have. If you had a 10 frame, to have all 10 frames with brood or brood and honey. And so that is a challenge that is there. And if you have several of your medium honey supers, what I would suggest is leaving the blanks, frame and foundation in the center and on the uppermost medium, with honey going to the right and to the left, and doing that down the hive, because the queen, even though that you're in Central Florida, is going to begin to move up to the top part of the hive, and she will need a place to lay her brood. So yes, you would want to remove any extra supers that have any empty comb that is there. Take those out, reduce it down to where you have maybe just 3 medium supers. Did she have anything more, Brian, on how many she had on the medium supers?
No. Okay. That's all I've got for Anne's question.
So what I would do is I would just say 3 medium supers max, and tuck them in for the fall and winter months, and be sure to feed them.
All right. Thank you, Ann. Bobby's up next. He's using dishwashing liquid to help with his mite check. Is that something that you have used in the past, or do you have a preferred method for doing your mite check when you're doing, I assume, the wash?
Okay.
Or do you think he's talking about something different than using dishwashing liquid, or different?
Well, let me try to interpret this, Bobby, and I apologize if I go off on the wrong tangent than what your question is. We do not use dishwashing liquid for a mite check. What he's talking about, folks, is you get a container that's about 6 to 8 inches high, and you fill it up with a cup of bees. And the typical thing is to put alcohol in there, rubbing alcohol, and then shake it for up to 1 minute, and then pour it out on a towel of any sort, and then do your mite counts. If you have 4 or more, that means you got to treat. And again, is if you see 4 after you've just treated, you need to treat again in another 2 weeks, and then do another mite check and make sure it's down to like 1 or none. And you might have to do this 3 times through. So it might take you up to 6 weeks to get your varroa back in check on that.
Cool. Thank you, Bobby. If we misinterpreted your question, feel free to give us a little bit more information to help. Since we're on the subject of varroa, this was a question that came in earlier today from Linda. She's in Roanoke. She asked, should I treat for varroa mites again before winter sets in? What do you think, Ray?
Okay, so Can you pop that question up?
I don't. It was a question
okay.
that came in before we started the live stream.
Okay. All right. So you don't treat just to treat. What you want to do is you want to do a Varroa check. And that Varroa check is going to indicate if you need to treat. If you treat on any kind of oxalic acid or any other uh, treatments that are out there, it's going to set your bees back for a couple weeks. So you've got to make sure, first of all, that you have a Varroa problem. And if you do, then go ahead and treat. So if you have 4 or more mites that come out on a shake, then that's time to treat. Then you come back 2 weeks later and do another shake, and it's got to be 1 or none on the mite drop on that. And then, you got your mites under control for the fall and winter months, and you should go into the spring very, very healthy.
Very good. Still to come, we are going to be hearing from Nikki Sweeney. We're getting great reviews on our Women in Beekeeping segment. She'll have another edition of Women in Beekeeping coming up. And right now, Henry wants to know about using the Ceracell top feeders, one of our favorites at Mountain Sweet Honey.
Yes.
We are huge fans of these Ceracell top feeders. He's been using sugar only. I don't know if he just means granule sugar or a mixture with water, but he wants to know about pollen patties. What are your thoughts?
Okay, Henry. Sugar is acceptable, and that's table sugar, folks, not powdered sugar, but sugar that you'd find on your table. And you can put that in there. But my preferred is using a pollen patty, because you got your essential oils in there. You also have the pollen, and you also have the sugar all in one bar of pollen patties. So that is the best that I've seen. And yes, you can go either wet feed or dry feed when it comes to a Ceracell feeder. All you have to do is take off the caps if you're going to use a dry feed. If you're going to use a wet feed, just put all your caps in, and the bees are ready to do their work there. So pollen patties is the best way to go, because it gives all the gut stuff that the bees need during the off season, which is fall and winter.
Very good. Amy checking in with us. Hello, Amy. She has experienced an invasion of wax moths in a swarm that she caught. Wants to know about preventing further infestations or damage from the wax moths. She knows about sunlight and cleaning up and reusing frames, foundation and boxes. Are those your preferred methods for dealing with wax moths?
All right. A common misconception is wax moths killed my hive, when in fact the wax moths are the last to the party of a hive that has crashed. They are there just to really make a mess for us as beekeepers, and it's just a sad thing when you open up a strong hive where the queen has failed for quite some time, and that's why the hive is in a downward swing. So wax moths, something happened well before the wax moths came in, and once they get started into a hive, they can do a lot of detriment. Now, wax moths also, when they have their larvae, they will get into the honey and will convert it into alcohol. So if you pull off your top of your hive and you smell alcohol, the first thing that you're going to be looking for is seeing it'll look like little maggots inside the hive, and those larvae just convert the honey into a sugar base, and then it begins to ferment, and you can really, folks, smell the alcohol when that happens. Is there any way to prevent them? Okay, so prevention is doing your inspections. July and August are extremely critical on doing a biweekly checkup on your hive, and make sure that that queen is functioning, looking for your eggs, larvae, and pupa. All 3 stages of the bee development is there and present. You don't have to see the queen, but you really want to be analyzing what are you seeing. And if you see that the queen is still laying well, then you're fine. put the top back on your hive, and go to your next hive for another audit of seeing what is happening in that next hive. All right. Yes, sunlight is a good cure for a lot of evils when it comes to placing our hives. We want to have those hives in as much sun. If we can get a hive into the summer months of getting 13 to 14 hours of sun, that will be excellent. The hive will thrive. When the bees get hot, they'll go out and fan off and will produce their own air conditioning within the hive. So sunlight is a really good thing for our bees. Now, when it comes to the foundation and the boxes, when wax moths get in there, if you have a strong hive, you can put those frames in there and the bees will clean those up. And only if you have a strong colony of bees that you can do that. Otherwise, you're going to have to just go ahead and check the foundation at a minimum. Maybe the frames, it will all depend on how clean you can get those. On the frames, you can boil water, get one of those turkey fryers and just get boiling water. And once it's boiling, just dip it down in. I use some tools to keep myself away from it blowing up in my face, but I'll dip them for a minute on each side, and then boom, they're ready to have the new foundation put in there. On boxes, okay, what I would suggest is getting a blowtorch and just cleaning up the inside, making sure any larva from the wax moths is dead. And that's basically what you're doing, is singeing the whole inside of your supers.
Very cool. I am so glad, Amy, that you're watching, that you asked the question. We appreciate you very much. And Ray, I'm very glad you're on the hot seat, because I would not know how to answer most of these questions. Our next question, before we get to Steve's question, I want to remind you guys, show us a little love, hit those like buttons, subscribe buttons, pump out some hearts, just so that the algorithm will know to pick up this video and send it out to more beekeepers that have questions just like Steve. He has been advised to switch out his overwintered honey frames with brood frames to promote more bees in the spring. He's done this before and says that it has worked. What are your thoughts on recommendations for frame manipulation? Anybody, any thoughts about what people could do manipulating frames to promote a better hive in the spring?
All right. I just want to look at his question more in depth here, because it brings up probably about a half hour's long conversation on this here. Okay. So what I mentioned earlier was moving frames to the upper side of the hive, and that might have brood or even just combed out foundation. So that would be your top two supers that you would use for that. And yes, that is a manipulation on that. And during the spring, what you would want to do is, in the center, you would have brood, an empty frame, then brood, and an empty frame. And there is something, folks, in the science of honeybees that just makes the bees go really wild on drawing out the comb on those blank foundations. So it just works. I mean, the time for coming out is cut by at least 50%, maybe even 60% when you do that checkerboarding and manipulating of the hive. And yes, Steve, by doing that, you get a big jump into going into the spring on that. Now, do you recommend any frame manipulation going into the fall and winter months? That would only be giving the room for the queen to move up, because you don't want the queen to be honey bound, where she can't get up and begin laying her eggs, limited eggs, during that time. And she needs to get up to the top. Rarely will you see a queen walking across honey. So when you're doing an inspection of your hive, it is always going to be, oh, that's a honey super and it's full of honey. I'm going to put that off to the side. 9 out of 10 times she's not going to be in there. So just a tidbit of information there. Steve, I hope this answers your question on that. And if not, follow it up with an additional question for me.
Next, we are hearing from Rodney and Deanna. They are interested in making a 2-gallon bucket feeder to use on top of the hive. They're living over in Northwest Alabama. Tell us about a 2-gallon bucket feeder. Is that something you're familiar with?
All right. Rodney, that's a good question. We tried these out a couple of years ago. There is a plug that is made, and you'll have to search the internet for it, but it's a rubber gasket that goes around, and in the center is screen, just like a screen that you would find on your window. And maybe it's even a smaller one. And you have to bore out the plastic on the plastic top on that bucket feeder. And it has to be just right for that seal to hit right. And then just flip it upside down really quick, and it will vapor lock, and the bees can feed off in that. Now, if that fails, and this is the reason why we don't carry them anymore, is if they fail, they'll flood the whole hive out. Yeah. And most of the time kill the queen off. So that is why we don't offer the bucket feeder. It was a great idea. It worked, but when it failed, it just killed the hive off. And we just saw our customer satisfaction not very high on that. And thus we dropped it at that point.
All right. Very good. Monica is from Maine, and this is in reference to sugar water. She wants to know what ratio that she should begin feeding there. Here's we're heading into fall, living in Maine.
Yeah. All right. Well, Monica, in Maine, I would say that I would still be feeding 1-to-1 sugar water up until about a week or two prior to the first freeze up there or the first frost. And then at that point, I would go back to a 2-to-1 ratio, because you got to slow your queen down. She will outpace what the colony can protect and keep warm during those cold nights, and you'll just lose all that larva. It will get pulled out and thrown out the front of your hive. So 1-to-1 right now, 2 weeks before the first frost, go ahead and go to a 2-to-1.
Monica has some follow-up questions. First, she says, thanks for the live. She's getting some great information, and she lost some bees over this summer, and now transitioning into winter, she has a question about preventing moisture in the hive. And again, she is from Maine, Ray.
All right, Monica, can you go back to the first part of that question, Brian? All right. Monica, one of the things that I would recommend, first of all, and you don't reference this, so I want to just say it, you got to test for Varroa. All right. Varroa gives a virus to our hives, and it's just like school children. Once one gets it, they all get it, and they take it home and they give it to us as parents. And then we give it to, like Brian here in the studio tonight, I'll give it to him, and then he takes it and gives it away too. And before we know it, we have a pandemic. And the same thing happens for our hives, is that it begins to spread with drift. This hive here is infected, and then you have a couple of bees that drift over to the next hive, and then they give it to that hive, and it just continues to go. And it sounds like, Monica, that it is definitely one thing that I would definitely look at, given the information that you have for me there.
And then her follow-up question was about moisture, and she gives some additional information that she'll be using a wrap. I know we love, is it the Cozy?
Yeah,
is that the Bee Cozy that we love here at Mountain Sweet Honey? And I guess she's worried about moisture getting in and being trapped by the wrap.
Well, there will be some moisture solely coming from nectar that has not cured to the honey stage with the reduced moisture. And there's also the moisture from the snow up in your neck of the woods. I don't know if you're right on the coast or inland, but yes, a moisture board would be something that you may want to consider. It's not a cure-all. There are some drawbacks with that, and because bees do need ventilation, but when that moisture board is put in there, it really cuts down on almost none ventilation on that. So that would be one thing that I would highly recommend is you can try it and see if it works for you in your area.
Very good. How do you feel about hearing from Nikki with our Women in Beekeeping segment to give people a chance to funnel in with a few more questions?
Yes, let's bring Nikki on in.
All right. You guys are in
And
for
she
a real
was in
treat.
just a little earlier today. Am I correct?
That is correct. I
All
think
right.
you guys are going to enjoy this.
Thanks, Ray. And hi, everybody. It's me, Nikki Sweeney, and we are back for another episode of our Women in Beekeeping. If you didn't get a chance to tune in last time, this is our mini segment that we're broadcasting during Buzz TV monthly. And it's really just to give a woman's perspective, my perspective on beekeeping and what works for me, what hasn't worked, trial and error, and maybe some fun information here and there. So today we are going to discuss what's in her tool bag. So when it comes to beekeeping, if you're a new beekeeper or you are a tenured beekeeper, when you go online and you are looking for supplies, you're probably going to get overwhelmed with all of the options that are out there. For me, I don't think that it's really, how many tools that you have in your tool bag. I think it's what works for you and having the best tools. So I know that while there's a lot of things that I would love to have in my tool bag, there are a few things that I absolutely have to have every single time I go out for a hive inspection and to check my hives. So I'm going to go over those with you today. Now, I will say I try not to bring all of my stuff in because it's gross and grimy, and I didn't want to scare Brian and Ray out of the studio today. But my gloves are a little disgusting, so always have a good pair of beekeeping gloves. If you don't have them, I would highly recommend that you get them. For me, the fingers are the most sensitive place for me to get a sting. My hands will swell up like crazy, and you can't do much when you've got basically boxing gloves for hands. So always get you a good pair. I actually prefer the mesh gloves just because you get triple layer. You've got a layer of mesh, then you've got this kind of hard rubber in there, and then you've got another layer of mesh as well. Underneath, you've got the goat skin glove, which all of ours at Mountain Sweet Honey are goat skin. They're a little bit different than this, but either which way, have you a good pair of gloves. These are going to go on and up the arm to kind of help protect against any stings. The other thing that you will always catch me in, used to, it wasn't that way, but here recently, the more I get stung on my face, the more I kind of turn into like a mogwai that you feed after midnight, and it's not a pretty scene. So I like to always have a beekeeping veil. So either have the full jacket or have a veil just like this, depending on what you're doing. Sometimes I can just go out in this veil in a long sleeve shirt, and I'm perfectly fine. Now, there are other times when I know that I need a full-on jacket, and that might be during a dearth, such as, a few weeks ago whenever I went out and decided I was going to weed eat, and my bees were not happy, so I was glad that I at least had my jacket on. The next thing that we're going to have is going to be our beetle gels. So if you live here in Georgia or, well, pretty much in the whole United States at this point, I think we've had a really wet year this year. For whatever reason, we've just had so much rain. And hive beetles is a big issue when it comes to my beehives. I'm in a very wooded area. There are different things that you can do to kind of try to prevent them. But beetle gels I have found to be some of the best ways to kind of combat that issue. So I'm always going to bring 2 of them. The reason I bring 2 is we require at least 2 per hive, or we recommend 2 per hive to kind of help with the hive beetle inundation. Normally they're going to go in, they're going to get them nasty. They'll probably put some propolis on them. So I just want to clean them out, and I'll put 2 new ones in there. And the way these are going to work is you've got 3 compartments here, 1 on each side, and then 1 that opens in the middle. So when you get these, you always want to make sure that you are bringing out your mineral oil, or if you've got vegetable oil. Mineral oil is typically recommended just because it works a little bit better, but whatever oil you have is fine by me. You're going to take this oil and you're going to pour it into the 2 side compartments. And then in the middle, you're going to take your apple cider vinegar. You can use, this is just Laura Lynn brand. You can use whatever brand you want, but pour that in the middle. And then you're just going to close these up. Now, when you close these, you're going to put these on your outer frame. So if you have a frame, you're going to put 1 on this frame, just like that. And then you would do 1 on the other side of your box as well. By doing that, the apple cider vinegar is going to really entice those hive beetles to come in, and they're going to go down into these little slots, and they will get trapped in that oil, and that kind of helps remedy some of that situation. So you want to go out there probably once every couple weeks, just check and make sure that they're not full of beetles. Trade them out if you need new ones. Just make sure that they're clean and that you're constantly replacing the oil and the apple cider vinegar. The next thing that I would say that I always bring is going to be our smoker. So this is just a standard size smoker. We offer a few different options at Mountain Sweet Honey, but this is really important because at any time that you're getting into your bees, typically depending on the bee, they don't really love it when you're in there near the queen or when they're near the hive. So they tend to be a little bit more temperamental. Not always, but it's always a good idea to just have your smoke ready. So what I use is my smoker, and then I will also I use cotton, just pure 100% cotton. So we do offer this at Mountain Sweet Honey as well. You'll see there's a couple little things in there, and that is because it is just natural cotton. I don't have to worry about chemicals in there. I don't want that inside of my hive. I just want to be able to go in and lightly smoke them. The other good thing about cotton is that it burns really cool. So some of your other smoker fuels that you use can get too hot, and you actually have a chance to singe the wings on your bees, which is not good for them at all. Obviously, that prevents them from being able to fly. It can hurt the hive. So if you can give a little bit cooler smoke, that's what cotton will do for you. And it's simple to use. I just kind of break mine up a little bit so it's not super tight in there so the airflow goes through. Just tuck it down in there, light it up, give it a couple pumps, and then you're ready to go. So always have your smoker with you. Always have some cotton fuel with you. And then I always like to bring an entrance reducer. The only reason I bring one out with me is because I typically use these wooden ones, and over time they just kind of start to deteriorate. That's just normal because it's wood, right? You can't paint them because the bees are going to try to clean it off, and they're using all their energy to clean this versus out foraging. So I just always have an extra one just in case you need to replace the one that you have, depending on the the time of season that it is. And then the final tool that I typically have, or not the final, I'm sorry, I've got two more. This one and one more after that. So this is my J-hook hive tool. So I use this hive tool more than any other hive tool out there. I don't know why this one just seems to work better for me. I really like on the edges here, it's really sharp. So if you've got propolis buildup in your frames, you can kind of crack and break that apart. That kind of just cuts right through that. So it's really good for propolis and for, like I said, tearing those frames apart. And then as you're going in with your frame, so if you go in to grab your frame, it's got this little ledge here. So you can kind of use it as leverage to wedge your frame up out of there while you grab it, instead of having to wedge it up, grab it, pull it back. This one to me seems to work a little bit better. So this is our J-hook tool. Like I said, that just is going to go in there and wedge. We hired a couple new people in our office, and we've been doing kind of a product teach one. And Natalie was the one that actually was working on this tool the other day, and she found some cool information where beekeepers will actually sharpen these edges up a lot more and use them as almost like a blade. So if you're out by your beehive and you've got limbs or twigs or something like that that's kind of in the way or hindering your beehive, the entrance, you can actually go in and use this almost like a hatchet or a little saw. So I thought that was pretty neat, something I had never thought about, but it makes perfect sense. So always have you a tool. I would recommend get you at least two of these. I lose my tool more than anything in the world. I don't know how. I put it in my back pocket and it falls into the abyss, and then I have to pull out another one. So one or two of these is always recommended. And then the final thing that I typically have is going to be sugar water. I have my water because I was thirsty this morning. My bees are going to be upset I forgot their sugar water, which is the one thing that I would normally always have with me. It's always good to have, just so if you need to refill your Boardman, if you're using a Boardman feeder or your deep feeder. I personally use the top feeders. We'll go over those in another segment, but just always make sure that you've got your sugar water based on the season that you're doing, whether it be 1-to-1 or 2-to-1, whatever that may be, but always have some sort of food source for your bees. And I think that's it as far as all of our products go, or all of my tools go. I'd love to hear what you guys have in your toolbox. So if there's something that I didn't mention here today, but you think that it's the thing that you have to have every single time that you go out, would you share that with me and just let me know? Because I'm constantly learning, and it's always great to just bring back, what I learned to our team, and just to hear, the different interesting things that work for you guys. And don't forget, I am also still taking ideas. So if you have an idea for an upcoming Women in Beekeeping show that you'd like to learn more about or hear more about, give me a call or email it over would even actually be better. If you can just send that to Nikki, Nikki, at mountainsweethoney.com. And hopefully we can get that on the next segment. I plan to be in studio live for our October 2nd Buzz TV, so I'm really excited about that. And we'll just plan on seeing you then. Bye.
All right. Thank you so much, Nikki. What great information. Now we know what's in Nikki's bag. Why she carries that big bag with her everywhere that she goes. Ray, why don't we talk a little bit about this QR code in the upper right-hand corner where people can get all the details on the National Beekeepers Boot Camp. If somebody's just now catching the stream, bring us up to speed on what's happening October 11th.
October 11th is our one of two beekeeping boot camps that we offer. And people from Texas drive in, people from Nebraska fly in, folks from Florida, Maine, and everywhere else in between to come spend a day and learn about beekeeping. We get into some basics, but then we also get into some advanced beekeeping techniques. And all of it is designed to help you succeed as a beekeeper and be profitable as a beekeeper. Nobody likes to lose bees, and that's why this course was really developed, was to come beside our beekeepers and say, hey, look, here's something that can help make you successful. Because if we really look at it, most beekeepers have learned mostly on their own. And in this day and age with Varroa and with other pests that have made themselves at home in our hives, we give you some ideas of how to battle those. Everything from how to battle ants to cockroaches to Varroa to small hive beetles. So we go into those pests and talk a lot about them. Now, we also have some hands-on stuff. We will get out and take a look at hives and really critique what are we seeing and what should we be doing. And so all this is just a fun day of learning a lot more about beekeeping.
Excellent. Thank you. And again, just use your phone, open the camera app, point it at that QR code there in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. That'll allow you to register, get access to hotel information, and just all the fine print that you need to read. Before we dive back into some questions that have come in from the live stream tonight, we did have one earlier today. I thought this was really good and might interest a lot of people. It's from Steve in Bowling Green, Kentucky. Ray's asking, what's the best way to combine weak colonies before the winter? So he's got some weak beehives, and how can he combine those effectively?
Well, Steve, one of the things that you have to determine is which one is the strongest of the 3 or 4 or even 2 hives that you're going to combine together. That is the queen that you will bring forward. And obviously the other queens, you're just going to pinch them and move on with bringing over those brood frames, however limited it might be. Now, in order to do that successfully, you need to get your smoker really going where it's really rolling out the smoke. And what you're going to do is smoke those frames one by one, front and back, and then place them into the hive. And when you're placing it in there, go ahead and smoke it again so that it erases all the queen pheromone of the queen that's in there and the one that you're bringing in that you pinch the queen on. You're going to continue to do that back and forth, smoking each frame as you do it. And then you should have at least 3 to 4 frames of brood. If you're bringing together, let's just say 4 hives, I would at least want to have 4 frames of brood that I'm going to bring forward on. If not, just add these weak colonies into a strong colony and then move on. You can move the honey stores over to the more robust hive, or keep them off to the side. Put them into a freezer for the fall and early winter, because most likely you can use those late winter and insert those back into the hive. Now, obviously, you would want those frames that you put into the freezer to thaw out before you put it in there. Otherwise, you're going to really cool down the hive and the cluster and possibly freeze them out with moving them straight in without a thaw out time.
All right, cool. This one is from Laurie. She wants to know about using supplements, the Hive Alive patties that you talk about a lot. Is there an ideal time that these are beneficial?
One of the things that everybody should know is if you have more than one hive, you have to give these supplements to every hive. If you use tea tree oil, then you need to use tea tree oil or lemongrass oil, especially. The bees will be more attracted to come in and rob those hives that have not been fed that. So if you're feeding hive 1 with tea tree oil, then hive 2, 3, and 4 all need to have tea tree oil. Or the same thing with lemongrass. Lemongrass, you can smell if you have 10 hives or so. As soon as you get close to the hives, you can smell the lemongrass. But you have to feed all the hives the same way. And the same thing would be with Hive Alive on that there. There are several that are out there. I have not used all of them, but really the essential oils is where I'll hang my hat at the end of the day, because those are really good for the gut of the bees, especially during the winter months.
Appreciate the question, Lori. Jeffrey is not too far away from us down in Commerce, and he's got a question about oxalic acid. His question just says, can you discuss slow-release oxalic acid treatments like Viroxin?
Yes. Okay, Jeffrey, this is such a new product. I have not been able to experiment with it, so I really don't have a comment on Viroxin. It's so new, and I never jump on the boat of a new product until year 2 or year 3. I know of a large beekeeping operation down in South Georgia that jumped on a treatment a couple of years ago. And I won't go into all the details because there's a lawsuit going on right now, but they lost over 600 hives of introducing a new treatment. And that's the reason why I stay away from any new treatments. I want to see them tried and true before I put them into any of my hives.
Okay, good information. Logan in Southwest Michigan, do you have any ideas on how to winterize a top bar hive? And maybe explain what a top bar hive is for somebody that doesn't know, or should we just let them rock out?
Okay. All right. Top bars are unique, and where we hit the hives behind me here, those are typical hives, but a top bar hive goes horizontally, not laterally. And a top bar can have as few as 4 or 5 frames in it, or up to 20 frames, depending on the size of your top bar hive. And most of the time they're deeps. They're not mediums. All right. So when we want to winterize those, let me think on this one here.
Did we stump you?
This might be, but I think I know what I would do on this is, first of all, on a top bar hive, and you're in Southwest Michigan, so you're getting some lake effect snow that's hitting you. All right, so what I would do is I would put bales of straw around the north part and also the western part and the eastern part of that hive, and leave the southern part open. And what I would also do is get a 3/4 inch pressure treated plywood, and I would put the bales of straw so high that it's at least 6 inches above where your top bar is. And then I would put straw on top of that. And that should give enough winterization where you could even put some straw in the front of it where you'll need to get access here and there, but you could also pull it out at any time. That would be extremely helpful. But on the end where the entryway is, you're going to have to put a PVC pipe, maybe a 1 inch diameter, that goes from the entryway of the hive through the straw, and so that they can go out and defecate and come back in. So that's what I would suggest doing, given that you are in Michigan and snow is an issue there and cold weather. So that is to the maximum. The only other fallback that you could have is moving them into a barn, excuse me, that could allow more shelter during this time. And that's what folks up in Canada do, is move them into barns in the off season.
All right, very good. We appreciate the question, Logan. Thank you so much. In just a moment, we're going to have the drawing to see who wins the free package of Italian honeybees. If you asked a question tonight, you're certainly eligible. Do you have time for a few more questions, Ray?
Yep, we got about 6 minutes.
All right,
Brian.
we'll try to go to
them.
the speed round here. Mike is in Central Illinois. When should he start fall feeding?
Okay, well, let's define what fall feeding is. There's obviously winter feeding, and then there's the off-season feeding, which is outside of winter, both fall and spring. So in Central Illinois, you're starting to get close to that first frost. And what I would say is I would be feeding 1-to-1 sugar water, and then go to a 1.5-to-1 sugar water up until December. And the minute that you are seeing temperatures getting down into the 20s at night, that is when I would move over to a 2-to-1 sugar ratio at that point, because Central Illinois really gets a lot of mixture of sleet and ice and a lot of snow too. So that's what I would suggest for the fall feeding.
All right, very good. This question came in before the show began. Jeff is in Bloomington, Indiana. When should I do my final hive inspection of the season?
Well, hive inspections, where is he from?
Bloomington, Indiana.
Okay. All right. So what I would be doing at this point is a once a month inspection, and that is on the warmest day that I could find. And you want to do it after the bees are out trying to forage. But I'm going to be doing that right up until it's not getting above 55 degrees. And then that's when you go into hibernation at that point as a beekeeper. You're not going to be doing inspections anytime that the top end of the temperature is not above 55 degrees, because you'll chill your bees. Only under emergency circumstances would I get into bees below 55 degrees. That is why we really highly recommend the Ceracell feeders as well as the Boardman feeders, because it does not disturb the temperature gradient within the hive.
Very good. And our final question comes from Paul. Also earlier, he sent this in from Lynchburg, Virginia.
Okay.
Wants to know, can I harvest any more honey here that in the early fall, or should I leave it for all of it for the bees?
Is this his first year?
I don't have any more information than that.
Okay. If this is your first year as a beekeeper, keep it all on your hive. If you have two medium supers, leave it, because your bees are going to need it. Virginia does have a little bit more of a longer winter than what we see here. And you definitely will need those 2 supers there. I would not harvest anything past this point, because you have a lot of goldenrod nectar that has begun to come into the hive, and you're going to smell goldenrod. Goldenrod smells like a guy's locker room. When you open up the hive, you go, oh man, what's going on in here? And yeah, have they been working out or playing basketball, playing football?
We know the smell.
So anyhow, that's not a good time to harvest honey. And right now there's goldenrod all up and down the East Coast. We've even seen it arrive here in the last week and a half or so. And there's about 7 different types of goldenrod. And so all of us are going to be in it for several weeks, and then it's going to disappear. Now, this nectar that the bees are bringing in is very, very important, though. It helps them get through the winter months. So let them bring in that nectar from the goldenrod. It is good stuff for the bees, good pollen too for the bees. So don't discount goldenrod, even though we don't like it as honey sources, or most of us don't like it. But anyhow, Brian,
it's time to announce our winner. Yes, the winner of a 3-pound package of Italian honeybees is Laurie Rowe. Laurie Rowe,
congratulations.
Watching on Facebook tonight. You are the winner. Any instructions you want to give Laurie as far as how we will notify her?
You will hear from Nikki, and Nikki will be giving you a call, if not tomorrow, by Monday, and she will work out the details of getting these bees to you this coming spring. And I look forward, Brian, to seeing Nikki back here in the studio. She's been very busy at the office training new employees, and I must admit I've missed her here in the studio and look to have her back. And she will be helping me with the Beekeepers Boot Camp. So if you love Nikki, sign up and you'll see her all over. She'll be kind of like ricocheting all around during the boot camp. So folks, don't forget the boot camp. It is October the 11th from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. And we look forward to seeing you.